All right, so we are going to get started. Hello, everybody. So we are at the end of July. So we're like all like midway in the summer here. So that's fantastic. So we're going to get started and we are going to get started with our next session of Money Matters. So I've got two topics to share with you guys today, but we can only really do one in the time frame that we have. So I'm going to pick one that is something that I'm currently working on right now. And I know that a lot of individuals that I meet struggle with this concept here. And so I think this one would actually be a good topic to talk about today. And then the other one I will leave for next week. So the topic that we're going to talk about today is land sharing considerations. So we'll go into a little bit of the calculations, but most of it is going to be sort of at a very high level. Because if you are interested in doing some analysis on this and seeing if it's right for you, please reach out to me and happy to hop onto a call with you. I just realized that my meeting QR code is not up here, so it's going to be in the description down below so that if you want to hop onto a call with me, you can do so. So, okay, so let's get going here. So I'm Hung Lu with Cash Property Inc. And my goal with these sessions is really to just educate, give out as much information as I can about real estate, about money issues. And so, having said that, please make sure you do check with somebody else about some of the content that I put out there because it might not be right for you. So, yeah, just make sure that you check that. Okay, so we are on Facebook and this will be on YouTube as well. So that's fantastic. All right, so let's go into this whole land sharing idea here. So this comes about because, one, I'm on Cortez Island right now for the summer, and land sharing is something that is very common on this island, partly because the cost of land is high relatively compared to the income of a lot of people who live on the island full time. And so there's this concept of land sharing. It's very similar to um, joint venture partnerships. It's also similar to, like, I'm calling it a land share, but you could also think of it as co-sharing, a cooperative. In the past, I've done some videos on like condo sharing in like Parksville, okay, in BC, or like those ski resorts in Whistler, or time sharing, okay? That's another way to look at this land sharing concept. It's pretty much where you would have a percentage of the ownership on the land and the real estate that's on there. What's different about the land sharing is like different from, let's say, the timeshare or the Parksville condos. With the land share, usually you would be able to live on there year round. So you would have a primary residence maybe, and then you would have a smaller unit that somebody else is living there full time. And so the land is being shared by people who actually want to physically live there year round. It's not like the Parksville where you only have like a 25% of the condo share and you might get 1 month or 1 week out of the whole year to go there and live. Okay. So the reason why I'm saying that this idea is relevant for investors as well is because a lot of times, we travel somewhere like Cortez and we love it here and we think about buying a place here, but we're not here enough to justify the cost, right? Because think of it this way, you're buying a single family house potentially, you're going to have one tenant, and it's not like buying a multifamily where you have one roof with lots and lots of families in there to cover expenses when they can go awry. With single family, it's a completely different type of analysis. And so a lot of times when I'm looking at the Parksville condos or Whistler or those types of timeshare options, I have to remind myself that that is a lifestyle purchase. That is an emotional purchase because it's something like I want to go there regularly. Okay, so keep in mind that what we're talking about here, you sort of need to weigh it for yourself. Like, are you going to be there enough times to justify investing money in there? Or does it make sense just for you to potentially rent a place for the time that you want to go there. Okay, so let's go into a couple of the ideas. So let's just say you do decide that you want to actually acquire the land, and we'll talk about this from a couple of different scenarios here. Let me see. So I'm going to do the screens. Okay, so here you will see an Excel sheet come up. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger here. Okay, so we're going to talk about what I'm calling land share, but keep in mind that this can, refer to cooperatives, co-sharing as well, joint ventures, especially in Vancouver, where I'm actually looking at co-sharing opportunities for other individuals that like my clients, because to buy a place in Vancouver, you need like at least $2 million, right? To be able to qualify for something. And that's not realistic for everybody. Okay, so let's talk about this land sharing. So the one thing that you could do with land sharing is, one, acquire it the traditional way. So this is the traditional way. Okay, so traditional way. So that is where you find the listing on Realtor. You work with real estate agents. You find it in the traditional way, and you put down your down payment, and you go for a traditional mortgage, or you get private lending. However you go about it, right? The traditional way of buying a piece of real estate. So if you are the landowner, you could do this as well. So I'm going to talk about this from 2 points of view. One is the individual coming in that wants to buy into some sort of land share. Okay. And then the other viewpoint that I'm going to take is the person who owns the land, and you're trying to figure out a way to either bring in somebody as a partner to help own some of the land with you, so that some of the expenses is split. Okay, and on, let's say, Cortez Island, if you have a piece of land, co-sharing, land sharing is a great way to split some of that financial responsibility if you're not coming up here regularly, or if you don't live here full time. Okay, so the one way is just a traditional way of buying and selling. Now, this is not considered land share. Okay, what this is pretty much 100% selling the ownership of the land, unless it's lease land, to somebody else. Okay, or you're buying this 100% of it from somebody else. Okay, so that is the traditional way of buying real estate. And this could be set up with like vendor financing. So like if you're the owner, you can do some vendor financing, which is a great way to potentially make a little bit of money on the equity that you have when you go to sell. Okay, so I'm going to just put down VTB. If you don't know what a VTB is, you can Google that. It's a vendor take back, or seller financing, or vendor financing. It's the same term. Okay, so the next idea, in order to do a land sharing, or sorry, the next two are not part of land sharing. Okay, so the traditional way, and then the next two that I'm sharing with you are strategies within real estate to buy the property 100% or to sell it 100%. Okay, so the next one is an agreement for sale. So this is a very common strategy, like say in Alberta or Manitoba, not so much in BC, unless you're in like a remote area, and not so common in Ontario. Like I was in real estate for at least 15 years before I even heard about agreement for sale. So agreement for sale is where you, as the person wanting to buy it, you would normally put down a very small deposit. Okay, so a very small down payment. And then the current owner continues to hold title on the property, and whatever mortgage is in place stays in place. But you coming in as the buyer, you put down your small payment, you start taking over that mortgage payment. Okay, and so from that first day, you start taking management of that property, but you don't technically own it. Okay, and what happens is, here you decide on a future date, let's say in 2 years, or usually when that mortgage comes up, that's when you legally take over the property and you go and transition over to a new mortgage, and then you pay out whatever the agreement is with the current the seller, and then that's an agreement for sale. Okay, so similarly with this one, if you're not familiar with it, reach out to me. Happy to talk a little bit more about that. Okay, the third idea here, which is not part of the land share, but it's sort of the traditional way of doing, well, it's not traditional either. It's more a creative way of doing real estate to get 100% ownership of it, or to sell 100% ownership. Okay, and that is the rent to own strategy. So the same idea here, you would put down a small payment as the person wanting to buy the property, but you would also pay a little bit of rent every single month. And then you and the person who are selling the property decide on a future date and a future price of that real estate. Okay, so I used to run a rent to own program. I don't do it anymore. So I do have websites that talk about the benefits of rent to own, and like for both sides, as the investor coming in and the person coming in who wants to acquire the house for their dream home, basically, right? So if that is something that you want to learn more about, please feel free to reach out to me there as well. Okay, or just check out my website. Okay, so the last one, okay, so this is what we really want to talk about here, is the land sharing. Okay, so usually in the land sharing, there would also be some sort of down payment. Okay, and this amount could be anywhere from, a couple of $1,000s, okay, to a few percentage, like maybe 3%, all the way up to 10% even. Okay, so now the great thing about the land share is that you guys can say, okay, as of today, the land is worth, let's just say, $1 million. 2, 3, okay, so did that give me $1 million? Yeah. And so we're going to split this 50-50. Okay, and so then from that, you say, okay, well, I'm going to put down an X deposit. Okay, and every single month as part of this land share, I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars. Okay, and so that amount goes towards the $1 million. Okay, and so then there's an agreement in place saying that that money is going to go towards the current owner. We're going to split the land. You can take that money and actually go and like live off that money, right? And then there needs to be some sort of an agreement as to how the current mortgage is paid down, right? So there should be a mortgage. Usually there's a mortgage being carried. And so usually now, even if you come in, what you would do is you would say, okay, we're going to split the mortgage payments going forward. So you're drawing a line in the sand. So the mortgage payments going forward, we're going to split that, and any principal pay down is going to be split. Okay. Usually that's one way to structure it. Or you could say to that person, okay, well, the money that I'm giving you here to help with this 1 million also goes towards to pay the mortgage payment. So then there's no additional funds out of you coming in. Okay, so now there's also the upkeep of the land. Okay, so the regular monthly expenses. So that would be, say, the property taxes, insurance, any hydro, internet, sort of any of those monthly expenses that needs to be split in some way. So that would be taken care of that way. On some of the land, you could have some sort of rental income, like a small unit. So then that amount, if there is sort of any income, you guys would need to figure out how to split that. Okay, so on, let's say, a land share like in Parksville or like a Whistler condo, usually there's no splitting of anything. There's no splitting of income, because there usually is no income, because the income coming in from sort of any rentals that they're able to do offsets the monthly expenses. And then if there's sort of any extra money, extra fees for the monthly expenses that's not covered by the income, then you would have to pay out a certain portion of that. Okay, and then the mortgage in Parksville, like those types of co-ownerships, that mortgage is your own. So then you would, let's say, have 50% of this. So then you would actually go and have to have $500,000 of your own cash to come in, or be able to get a mortgage on your own. Okay, so that's a very a different type of strategy. Keep in mind that if you are doing a mortgage completely on your own and you're not just tapping into somebody's existing mortgage, a lot of the lenders will not give you a mortgage on a land share or a cooperative. So Van City does. There's TD apparently also does it too. Okay, but not every bank will do it, and so you do need to find a lender that will do it. Some credit unions may do it as well. So for a lot of these opportunities, you either want to have the cash or you want to be able to access a HELOC. So if you've got another property and it's got equity there, then you want to tap into that equity potentially to be the mortgage or the purchase for your land share. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Okay, so on the land share, so from the legalities, usually you would be added to the title. Okay, and depending on how that is done, you may trigger something with the current mortgage owner. If you're just tapping into that mortgage, they may come to you and want you to provide income documentation and go on there as a guarantor as well on the existing mortgage. So if you're doing one where you're not going into the existing mortgage, but you're bringing in your own mortgage, then that's very similar then to the number one, which is the traditional way of getting a mortgage. Okay, so what else can I tell you guys here about this? So this land sharing can be done anywhere. Okay, I'm using the example of Cortes Island because that's where I am now, and this is one of the places I know where land sharing is very common here. But land sharing can be done anywhere. Okay, so like even in Toronto, there's individuals that I know that partnered up in co-ownership in properties in Toronto, many years ago, and now they still have it and they're reaping the benefits of that, which is fantastic, right? Because as we all know, real estate prices have gone trendward upwards in Toronto regardless. Okay, so let me see here. So yeah, so the biggest thing with this land sharing is just making sure that it's, that you consider if it's an emotional purchase, okay, versus an investment. So of course I spelled that. Okay, I'm going to take that back. It's not an of course. It's I just spelled it wrong. Okay, so it's an emotional purchase or an investment. Okay, and there's a lot of justifications to say, hey, you know what? I'm an investor. It doesn't make sense for me to put 500,000 down or 3 to 10% potentially for a down payment on a land share where there's no income. I can just come in and pay a hotel fee to stay at a place and have the flexibility to travel to different places and explore different islands, different countries without having the financial obligation to upkeep on a land share. Okay, so with that though, keep in mind that with this, you're also, when you're doing the land share, you also get the upsides. Okay, so we talked about the expenses here, but you also get the upside of appreciation. Okay, so as an investor coming in, you want that upside of appreciation. So if you decide that, okay, you know what, this is an emotional purchase, I don't want that financial responsibility, my money can do more somewhere else, then you're going to potentially miss out on this upside of appreciation. But because you're taking your money and putting it into another opportunity, okay, you're not really losing on the upside of appreciation because you're putting your money somewhere else. Okay, so now keep in mind that as an investor, if you take your money and you put that into an investment somewhere else, that income that comes in, okay, can fund your travels to other places. Okay, if you come into a land share, okay, so I'm just going to write that out, income to fund your traveling. Okay, so that's the benefit of investing in real estate, is that you have income coming in to pay for the lifestyle that you want. Okay, but you need to invest it in an income generating investment property. Okay. If you buy into a land share, that's not considered an income generating property unless you are renting it out and making income. Okay. So usually with the land share, you're not writing off the expenses and or that there's not enough income to write off to justify it. Okay, like this would be a personal purchase as opposed to a um, business purchase or an investment purchase. Okay, so I think I've said enough on that. If there is any questions about that, please reach out to me. I love talking about real estate. If I've missed anything on here and you sort of have a different viewpoint on this, please let me know. I'm happy to learn as well. Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. That is all we have for today on Money Matters with Hong Lu. Okay, bye, everybody.